On this Saturday night, a U.S. court shakes up Trump's trade war. The legal battles ahead after most of America's tariffs are ruled unlawful.
President Trump's tariffs are illegal and unconstitutional.
And the uncertainties and possibilities for Canada's economy. Visas denied for attending the United Nations. How the U.S. is blunting attempts to recognize Palestinian statehood. Plus, who says big box stores can't succeed? An iconic retail brand is making a comeback. And the end of summer is in the air. The sky-high sights and sounds at the Canadian National Exhibition.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Eric Sorensen.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us. U.S. President Donald Trump is vowing to fight back after a federal appeals court ruled his sweeping import tariffs are illegal, saying he exceeded his emergency powers. For now, the duties remain in place as the case heads to the U.S. Supreme Court. But changes could be on the horizon. Mackenzie Gray breaks down what this means for Canada and the future of U.S. trade in tonight's top story.
For the first time since Tuesday, President Donald Trump in public, off to play golf on Labor Day weekend after the centerpiece of his political and economic agenda was dealt a potential major blow.
The bottom line is 7 judges recognized today that President Trump's tariffs are illegal and unconstitutional.
The judges from the Federal Circuit Appeals Court voting in a split decision that Donald Trump's reciprocal and fentanyl tariffs went beyond the authority delegated to the president under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, saying the president required congressional approval to implement them. But there's one catch. The court ruled that the tariffs can stay in place until October 14th to give the Trump administration time to appeal to the Supreme Court, which U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirmed they would do. So, what does this mean for Canada? The 35% tariff on non-free trade goods under the so-called fentanyl tariffs have been deemed illegal by the court. But the 50% tariffs on steel, aluminum, and copper, along with increased duties on softwood lumber, are not affected by this order.
Canadians are kind of lucky because most of our products are protected with the CUSMA rules. So if you can prove that your product that you're sending into the US, you should not be impacted.
Between 85 and 92% of Canadian goods have continued to go to the US duty-free during the trade war, thanks to the CUSMA exemption. But with constant US rule and tariff changes, finding additional markets is imperative.
If you're a small to medium-sized business that's looking at how things are unfolding at this point, it would be a smart thing to start looking for customers in other markets.
Well, 2 lower courts have ruled that most of the Trump tariffs are illegal. It's no slam dunk the Supreme Court will agree, Eric, with the Republican majority on the top U.S. court having repeatedly voted to expand the powers of the president.
Mac, this ruling comes in the midst of Ottawa's trade negotiations with Washington. Does it impact the Liberal government's strategy in these talks?
Yeah, I think it does, Eric, because it gives Mark Carney a plausible rag-the-puck strategy. Try and negotiate with the U.S. to avoid having either additional tariffs increased or implemented, while hoping the Supreme Court deems the fentanyl tariffs are illegal. Now, that wouldn't solve all the problems, but it would get rid of the most widespread tariff and limit future downside risk. Sources I've spoken with in the Prime Minister's office have expressed a belief that Trump could pull the tariff exemption for free trade goods at any time, with one likely date, the spring of 2026. That's when the CUSMA renegotiation is likely to start, and Trump would add tariffs at that moment to try and put maximum pressure on Canada. But if the tariffs get struck down, that can't happen. We should also say, though, Eric, that this isn't the only way that the White House thinks that they can put tariffs on, and they believe that they will win when the case does get to the Supreme Court.
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa tonight. Thank you. The maker of Jack Daniel's says it's feeling the impact of the ongoing trade war. The company says sales to Canada plunged 62% last quarter. The drop comes after some provinces pulled U.S. spirits from shelves in response to Donald Trump's tariffs. Brown-Forman, which also makes Woodford Reserve, calls the boycott a significant headwind for business. The news comes just days after the owner of Crown Royal, Diageo, announced plans to shut down its southwestern Ontario plant next February to move some operations to the United States. About 200 jobs will be affected. There are calls for the U.S. to reverse a major decision ahead of a United Nations gathering next month. The Trump administration has blocked senior Palestinian officials from attending the UN General Assembly in New York, where several countries plan to recognize Palestine as a state. Candice Cole has more on the decision and the backlash.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's decision on Friday to revoke or deny visas for nearly 80 Palestinian officials is being met with backlash from other Western leaders. Among those denied entry ahead of next month's UN General Assembly in New York is Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas.
A huge amount of work has been done, led by the French and the Saudis, to prepare for a conference on a two-state solution. And the idea that the leader of the Palestinian Authority would be deprived an opportunity to attend that simply isn't acceptable, and I believe the EU as a whole should protest this decision in the strongest possible terms.
The decision by the United States comes as Israel is scaling back airdrops and food aid deliveries in preparation for its ramped-up offensive in Gaza City, now designated a combat zone. Friday, the Israeli military embarked on the initial stages of an attack on Gaza City. This family mourning after an Israeli airstrike killed 6 people taking shelter in a tent, according to Gaza's health ministry. Israel supports the Palestinian delegation being denied visas by the U.S. Denying a visa for Abbas, who is not affiliated with Hamas but leads the opposing Fatah party, means he will not be able to deliver an address to the UN, as several countries, including Canada, plan to recognize Palestine as a sovereign state. Under the UN Headquarters Agreement of 1947, the U.S. is required to allow foreign diplomats to the UN in New York and Washington, except for concerns over security, extremism, or foreign policy reasons. A spokesperson for Abbas says his office was astonished by the decision and is calling on other countries to put pressure on the U.S. to reverse course. But the State Department is justifying the move, saying Palestine has failed to reject extremism while seeking recognition of a Palestinian state. Candice Cole, Global News, Washington.
Israel has killed the prime minister of Yemen's Houthi government, according to the Iranian-backed militant group. A Houthi spokesman says Ahmed al-Rahawi and several other ministers died in an Israeli airstrike Thursday in Yemen's capital. The Houthis have repeatedly launched missiles at Israel, saying the attacks are in solidarity with the Palestinians. It was another night of deadly Russian airstrikes across Ukraine. In Zaporizhia, at least one person was killed and dozens injured after Russian bombardments struck a residential area, all part of an overnight attack throughout the country involving 537 drones and 45 missiles from Russia. Ukraine's Air Force says it shot down most of them. Police in Ukraine are also investigating the murder of Ukraine's former parliamentary speaker, Andrei Parubi. He was shot dead on the streets of Lviv today. The motive is unclear, and officials say a manhunt is underway. Parubi was a leader in the 2014 mass protest movement against Ukraine's president at the time over government corruption and Russian influence. North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un appeared in public to console families of North Korean soldiers killed in Ukraine. In a ceremony aired on state television, Kim expressed grief for the fallen men and promised their families they will have a beautiful life in return. Earlier this year, North Korea acknowledged it was sending troops to aid Russia's invasion. The government has not released numbers, but intelligence agencies estimate that more than 10,000 soldiers were sent and that a few hundred to several thousand have been killed. In Indonesia, protests are intensifying over the death of a taxi driver. Demonstrators set fire to a local parliament building in eastern Indonesia, leaving at least 3 people dead and multiple injured. Protests erupted across the country this week over low wages and financial perks for lawmakers. The unrest intensified yesterday after video surfaced of a police tactical vehicle hitting a motorcycle taxi driver. Back in this country, it's a busy weekend for post-secondary students and their parents. With the start of classes just days away, thousands of students are getting settled at the University of British Columbia, with many saying they can't wait to get the school year started. And a similar scene today at Queen's University in Kingston, Ontario, a coming-of-age moment for many families. They're welcoming about 4,800 first-year students, and they have 1,000 volunteers to help the move-in run smoothly. September is known as a critical time for children with asthma. And with the school year quickly approaching, respiratory therapists have some important reminders for families before that first bell rings. Here's health reporter Catherine Ward.
This time of year is often referred to as the September spike. During the summer, asthma experts say many families often become more relaxed about their child's asthma management. And when they head back to school, they are suddenly exposed to a range of several asthma triggers all at once.
Seasonal changes, more ragweed pollen, weather changes, and indoor factors such as dust, but also from the gathering of people indoors closely to each other, especially when we are entering the flu season.
Kate Allen has been managing her 7-year-old daughter's asthma since she was 3.
The fear is always going to be there. Ultimately, I know that a few weeks in, we're almost certainly going to come down with some kind of virus.
About 1 in 10 children in Canada have asthma, according to the Canadian Pediatric Society. Asthma Canada says up to 85% of asthma attacks are triggered by viral infections, with the common cold responsible for 60% of these exacerbations. Respiratory therapist Shirley Quach says simple healthy habits can make a big difference.
Cold and getting the flu is one of the triggers for asthma. It's very important that teaching your child how to have good hand hygiene, so properly washing their hands or using a hand sanitizer, and that will really minimize their risk and exposure to pathogens in their hands when they're working with and playing with other children, especially when they're eating.
Allen says it's also important to review asthma triggers and symptoms and emergency plans with kids, and for caregivers to touch base with the teachers every year.
Don't be afraid to make some noise. Be a mama bear, be a papa bear, start that conversation and make sure that they know your child and know the aspects of their asthma.
Catherine Ward, Global News, Toronto.
You can't put a price on nostalgia. Coming up, Zellers tries to get back into the retail scene more than a decade after going out of business. Plus, a troubling diagnosis for one of the world's most popular chefs. It's a blast from the past at an Edmonton mall this holiday weekend. More than a decade after Zellers closed across the country, store signs have reappeared in northeast Edmonton and could be coming soon to a community near you. Noah Rishaug looks at the plans for the iconic Canadian retailer and what shoppers are saying about it.
It was one of the first things people noticed as they entered Londonderry Mall.
It's just like coming home. That's what it feels like. They come home at last.
Without much warning, the classic Zellers logo appeared overnight, igniting memories and nostalgia for mall-goers.
Zellers was a thing of the past in the 80s for us growing up. I just remember my mom taking our family to, go shopping, and yeah, now I guess I'll be bringing my kids to Zellers.
Since the Hudson's Bay Company closed down earlier this year, malls across the country have been left trying to fill a major void.
Hudson's Bay did thrive in our shopping center for decades, for over 50 years. So to lose the department store was really a challenging time, not only for the shopping mall, but also for shoppers.
I can't imagine that Zellers is the savior here of retail in Edmonton.
While the brand undoubtedly sparks memories, economist Moshe Lander questions if that brand or any anchor store has a place in modern retail.
Those malls are going to continue to try and find anchor store after anchor store, and they just don't exist anymore.
The transformation from the Bay to Zellers was complete in just over 2 months. The new store will only take up the first floor of the former HBC. Its doors are set to swing open on Labor Day.
You want to see? I'll be first in line.
Noah Rishaug, Global News.
Celebrity chef Gordon Ramsay is healing after being treated for skin cancer. Sharing the news on Instagram, the temperamental TV chef thanked healthcare workers for removing the basal cell carcinoma, a common type of skin cancer. Showing a side view of his face following treatment, Ramsay wrote to his followers, "Please don't forget your sunscreen this weekend." Ahead, Poilievre's pivot, how the Conservative leader is trying to change his image for a key demographic of voters. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is preparing to return to Parliament this fall after his recent by-election victory in Alberta. Some have sensed an image makeover, from his tone to even his fashion. As David Aiken tells us, it may be an effort to boost his popularity among women after coming up short with female voters in the last election.
In the 2025 election, the Conservative Party won the highest popular vote in the modern party's history, but still lost to the Liberals. One reason: women, especially women over 50.
There's a huge gap in the number of women and men who say they have a favorable view of him.
Indeed, some polls found Poilievre trailed Liberal leader Mark Carney by 25 points among women over 50, right on the eve of the vote. And that's a gap that pollsters like John Rowe says needs to be overcome if the party wants to form government.
The group that's most likely to vote is older Canadians, much more so than younger Canadians, and especially women and older women are very likely to vote.
One option to appeal to women over 50, develop some new policy approaches.
Women compared to men over time have been much more concerned about healthcare, and I think that is an issue where the Conservative Party is not viewed as very strong on.
Another: change Poilievre's tone and his image, and that's something that's happening right now. Before the election, Poilievre showed off a muscular torso in a tight t-shirt while campaigning on shop floors and in warehouses. Since the election, he's still campaigning on shop floors and in warehouses, but the t-shirt is gone in favor of a suit, often a tie, and a crisp white-collared shirt. Quite a change for a politician who once led campaign rallies with this slogan:
"With boots, not suits. Boots, not suits."
For his part, Poilievre says he's not giving that gender gap much thought.
I don't believe in breaking the country down by demographics. I believe in working for every Canadian, of every age and every gender and every race.
And that's something you'd sort of expect a politician to say, but here's a data point for Conservatives to consider. When Andrew Scheer became party leader in 2016, Angus Reid, the pollster, found that 36% of women voters said the Conservative Party does not represent me. 36% back in 2016. Now that number has now risen to 53% under Poilievre. 53% of women voters who say the Conservative Party does not represent me. David Aiken, Global News, Ottawa.
From vintage aircraft to the future of Canadian aviation, all eyes on the skies in Toronto. That's next. A euphoric arrival today in Australia for three Scottish brothers who spent the past 139 days rowing across the Pacific Ocean. They started in Peru and rowed nearly 15,000 kilometers, claiming a new record for the fastest unsupported crossing of the world's largest body of water.
It's been an experience the three of us will never forget. But I think the thing that's underpinned it the most is the support we've felt from friends, family, and people all around the world.
The goal wasn't just to break a speed record. The brothers raised $1.3 million for clean water projects in Madagascar. For 76 years, spirits have been flying high above Toronto with the annual International Air Show at the Canadian National Exhibition. It's a mix of stunt flying and military jets that is always, as Lexi Benedict reports, a crowd pleaser.
The roar of the 76th Canadian International Air Show. Tens of thousands gathering here along the waterfront where you can see, hear, and feel the excitement.
Like how the jets sound makes your chest shake.
Homegrown talent is in the spotlight this year.
So we're focusing Canadian pilots from across Canada, as well as some vintage aircraft and a future fighter of the Royal Canadian Air Force, the F-35, that we will be receiving in Canada next year.
Including husband and wife duo, Mike and Samantha Tryggvason.
She's a wing walker, so he's going to be flying his aircraft with her on top, going upside down, and that is a real test of a marriage, isn't it? So it's their first time performing here together. We haven't had a wing walker in Toronto for many, many years.
17 planes taking to the skies. From the Northern Stars, the CF-17 and F-35 demonstration teams, And of course, the Canadian Forces snowbirds.
I'm doing this because I was at the fence, you know, asking for autographs and snowbird stickers at the Moncton Airport as a 10 or 12-year-old. So I went to see the snowbirds when they would come in for a fuel stop. So that inspired me to do what I'm now doing and having joined the team and performing a show with you guys here today.
Inspiring the next generation.
These planes here are really cool to see, and we're amazed to see them. And we're so ready for the F-22 Raptor, I'm pretty sure, right?
And continuing a Canadian tradition.
I've been coming to this since I was a kid, and I'm in northern Alberta, so I brought my wife to take in the experience that I had when I was a kid.
And what you're seeing now is just the beginning. Planes will be soaring across Toronto's lakeshore all Labor Day long weekend. Lexi Benedict, Global News, Toronto.
And that's Global National for this Saturday night. I'm Eric Sorensen. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Lloydminster, Alberta, Angland Lake, Saskatchewan, and Birchie Lake, Newfoundland and Labrador. Keep them coming. Send your pictures of Canadian pride to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching.